Today we're going to look at a concept that comes up in the Baroque period called Basso Continuo. So briefly, in most modern music now, you have ensembles that look sort of something like this. You'll have a singer who's singing the melody. You'll have like a rhythm guitarist, a keyboardist, maybe a synthesizer, or like a synthesized beat playing out some chords underneath the melody. And then you have some instrument or synthesized instrument that plays a bass line. These are, at least with pitched elements, the most common elements of popular music style textures today. Not pictured would be like a drum kit or a synthesized drum kit or something like that. But you've got melody, you've got something playing the chords, and you've got something playing the bass. This is a texture that starts in the Baroque, late Renaissance in the Baroque period, and the first kind of iteration of that is what we call Basso Continuo. So Basso Continuo is essentially the same functions supporting a melody in terms of the chords and bass. So here's an example of a group playing a Baroque piece that is using Basso Continuo. So here I've got an arrow pointing to the violinist who's playing the melody in this instance. The chords are being supplied by two instruments. The organ, there's a small organ called a portatif organ, and then the teorbo over on the right, which is like a big lute, essentially functions like a rhythm guitar in Baroque music. And then the lutist might also be playing bass lines too, depending on what the texture calls for. Those kind of big long strings near the top of the fretboard on that lute would play those. And we've got a viola da gamba here, the Baroque equivalent of a modern cello, playing the bass lines. So this accompaniment texture of the chord instrument, in this case the portatif organ and the teorbo, are playing chords, and then the viola da gamba playing the bass. This is the Basso Continuo. So the Basso Continuo is the accompaniment group behind the melody. It can be behind a sung melody. You have that in Baroque operas a lot. It can be behind an instrumental melody, in this case being played by a violin. The other interesting aspect of Basso Continuo texture is how it's written out. So here is a piece. This is by an Italian composer, Giovanni Battista Platti. It's a flute sonata. And so the way this is written out is that this is the first three lines of that music. You can see on the left part of the staff, they're kind of bracketed together in two. The top line is the melody. The bottom line is the bass. And then written out above the bass in the red box here are these numbers. These are called figured bass. And they tell the keyboardists, so the organ player, the lutenist, what chords they should be playing above that bass line. So take a minute to look at that. What I want to point out to you is that the melody is written out, with some instances where in Baroque performance you'd have improvisation added. The bass line is written out too. And the chords are written out as these numbers above the staff, circled with the red box there. So notice this, that the melody is written out with some potential improvisation that can be added sort of on top of the melody. The bass line is written out also. The chords, however, are just written as the numbers, and so it is sort of up to the keyboardist or lutenist or whoever else is playing the chords, sort of where on the keyboard or the lute to play them, and they are not as sort of specifically notated as the bass line and melody. So this gives us a sort of insight into how Baroque composers viewed the function of those chords, that the melody is more important and then the particular bass line as written is more important. And this is due to the understanding that Baroque composers have, that modern artists have also, that how you hear the melody and how you hear the chords is impacted more greatly by the bass line than by the chords themselves. So that's Basso Continuo. It's an accompaniment texture played by a chord instrument and a bass instrument. It's written out in this style that's on the screen now. It's called figured bass, where you have the bass line notated out, but then you have the numbers, figurations above that bass line telling you what chords the chord player should play also.